Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we're going to dive into a concept that honestly gets misunderstood all the time. A lot of folks think philosophy is just this, abstract academic exercise, something locked away in dusty libraries for eccentric thinkers. But actually, scratch that. As we're going to see today, it's far from it. Philosophy is literally the very tool we use to navigate, understand, and ultimately shape our entire human existence. It's an active, lived process. It's us trying to figure out our place in a world that just will not stop changing. Think about this for a second. Why is there something rather than nothing? Or what does it actually mean to live a good life? These are massive foundational questions, right? Well, the exact moment you pause to think about your place in this wildly unpredictable universe, or wonder what makes a life truly just or happy, you aren't just daydreaming. You are actively doing philosophy. Now, early human societies, they relied heavily on myths and religion to answer these things, basically using the actions of gods to explain how the universe worked. But eventually, we wanted more. We wanted explanations that really satisfied our curiosity and our intellect through pure reason. And that brings us to a really fantastic quote from Plato. He said, "Wonder is very much the affection of a philosopher, for there is no other beginning of philosophy than this." I love that. It beautifully captures our starting point. It's that basic, innate human condition of wonder and curiosity that historically pushed early thinkers to say, okay, enough with just accepting myths and convention, let's search for some rational answers. That sense of wonder, it's something every single one of us possesses whenever we look up at the stars or even just question the rules of our own society. Which naturally leads us to the ultimate archetype of a philosopher, Socrates. Now, what's kind of wild about Socrates is that he didn't leave any writings behind at all. No, he actually prided himself on knowing that he knew nothing. Instead of writing, he operated almost like a social gadfly. He'd just walk right up to the citizens of Athens and challenge their assumptions, literally testing and refining ideas through real-time conversation. He proved that new ideas really only emerge through the examination, analysis, and, sometimes fierce criticism of other people's ideas. So, Section 1, From Myth to Reason, Questioning the Everyday. So how exactly did we evolve from just passively accepting inherited religious traditions to actually using individual reasoning to figure out how to live a good life? Well, if we cut right through the academic jargon, philosophy literally translates to the love of wisdom. But in practical terms, it is the disciplined analysis and clarification of arguments to attain a better understanding of the world. Simply put, it means using rigorous reasoning to find answers, instead of just blindly accepting what everybody else says. It's basically a mental workout. It provides training in how to analyze the arguments, theories, and concepts that we literally use every single day. To do this, Socrates championed the famous dialectical method, which is actually a surprisingly practical sequence. First, you question everyday concepts, things like what is justice or what is beauty. Second, you reveal the false assumptions those concepts are usually built on. Third, by stripping away all that falsehood, you discover the real meaning. And fourth, the ultimate goal, you achieve peace of mind. You see, Socrates firmly believed that an unexamined life leaves the soul totally confused and dizzy. But if you rigorously question the things you just take for granted, it ultimately leads you to do the right thing, and you achieve genuine stability and peace in your own soul. All right, moving on to Section 2, Solving Practical Problems, Philosophy in the Real World. Now, this crucial point that this ancient style of questioning evolved into a highly practical way to actually master our environment brings us to the 20th century American pragmatist John Dewey. Dewey is great because he completely took philosophy out of the realm of pure abstract thought and planted it firmly in our daily messy struggles. I absolutely love his quote here. "We only think when we are confronted with problems." Dewey believed that human existence itself is a massive risk. It's a gamble. The world is fundamentally unstable. It's full of failed crops, sudden storms, unexpected diseases. So according to Dewey, philosophy doesn't start in some cozy armchair. It starts directly from these everyday human struggles and our absolute, desperate need to make sense of a world that is in a state of constant flux. Think about it. When you're facing a risky and unpredictable world like that, human beings really only have two main strategies. On one hand, we have the strategy of appeasing hidden forces. Early humans tried to strike bargains with the gods, right? They used magical rites, traditions, sacrifices, basically promising to be good in exchange for safety from the storm. But on the other hand, we have the alternative strategy, mastering the environment. And this is the one we use today. We develop complex techniques through science, technology, and practical philosophy to forecast the weather, build sturdy shelters, and actively control and master our changing environment. And Dewey saw philosophy as the essential tool that helps us work through the tension between those two approaches. It helps us navigate the contradictions between our inherited traditional beliefs and our modern mastery of the environment. For example, maybe you've inherited some traditional, deeply held beliefs about ethics and what constitutes a good life, but then you find out they directly conflict with a modern scientific understanding you've just learned. Well, philosophy is the practical art of finding responses to those exact contradictions. We use it to make our everyday experience clearer and to seriously increase our power to address the real problems of living. Let's jump to Section 3, Radical Freedom Colliding with the Future. Building directly on that practical foundation, as we move into the modern era, thinkers began to view human existence not as some fixed, static essence created by biology or a higher power. Instead, they saw it as a continuous, self-determining struggle where we have to create our own meaning. The philosopher José Ortega y Gasset put it perfectly. He said, "Life is a series of collisions with the future." He argued that we are always immersed in very specific, often limiting circumstances, right? Where we live, the habits we form, the prejudices we hold, but we aren't trapped by them. He said we absolutely must look at our lives with fresh eyes. We have to actively expose the assumptions behind our beliefs so we can engage creatively with our own existence. And here's exactly how that works in practice. We all start off completely immersed in our particular circumstances. But instead of just passively accepting them, we can actually reject those limitations by actively imagining new possibilities. When those new imagined possibilities crash into our current circumstances, boom, that is the collision with the future he was talking about. By rejecting our prejudices and imagining something totally different, we create the friction necessary to actively change our lives for the better. In a very real way, we are the energy of our own lives. Which brings us to Section 4, Condemned to be Free, the Ultimate Responsibility. All right, so this brings us to the ultimate, truly radical conclusion of this whole line of human inquiry, the existentialism popularized by the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre makes a massive claim here. He asserts that there is no universal, fixed human nature. Nothing, absolutely nothing in our lives is preordained. And because of that, we are entirely 100% free to choose how we act. But Sartre actually calls this being condemned to be free. Now, why condemned? Because without external rules, without some pre-written destiny or hidden forces to justify our actions, we have absolutely zero excuses to hide behind. Every single choice we make carries an immense responsibility. In fact, Sartre argued that when we make a choice, we aren't just choosing for ourselves. We are implicitly stating that this is how a human life ought to be lived. We are essentially creating a template for all of mankind. Heavy stuff, right? So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, absolutely vital question to chew on. Since you are not a fixed entity, and since you are entirely responsible for the choices that shape your future and overcome your circumstances, how will you use your radical freedom to shape your human existence today? You see, philosophy isn't just about reading what a bunch of old thinkers said centuries ago. It's about taking that rigorous questioning, applying it directly to your own everyday problems, and realizing the immense, almost scary power you hold. So what will you do with that freedom right now?